Um, but I do want to move on and ask you a question. We mentioned
No.
earlier. Okay. Thanks everybody for listening. We had
All right, go
mentioned
ahead.
before that to our count, 90 different players across all the Nations League, European, AFCON, uh, you know, friendlies in Asia, and then CONCACAF Nations League. 90 players were called into their respective nations to represent their country. As you saw, this left MLS teams with quite the selection issue when it came to their starting 11. Are we more excited, or maybe are you more excited? We might have different opinions here. That our league is having all these players get called into the national team. It's spreading our brand and getting our name out there. Or are we upset about it because our league doesn't stop during this time and now we have to play through, basically USL level talent on some teams, not all teams, but there are teams that are going to have to suffer through this. I was wondering your thoughts on that.
I can't see why we couldn't have both. I mean, I am excited that we have lots of players going and representing their national teams, getting some more exposure as they kind of continue to build up and continue to build their brand and get more attention on MLS. Like Thiago Almada going and scoring for Argentina is fantastic. I think even if that gets a couple more people to be like, hey, who's this Thiago Almada guy? Let's look into him. Where's he playing? Oh, he's playing in MLS. That's great. Maybe I'll check him out. I think that's fantastic for us. But I also think that I just don't love the fact that we are playing games during the international window, considering that, at least from a Premier League perspective, they don't have any games being played during the international window. I don't know why we wouldn't do something like that unless it's a scheduling thing. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think you watched as well the Galaxy Portland game, and it was a brutal game to watch. Let's just be honest. It was a rough game to watch,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like if some of that is definitely injuries. I know there's guys that are out on both sides with injuries. It's not just national duty, but there are plenty of teams around the league. Like even the Atlanta game, I know Minnesota was missing a ton of teams. Like just team missing five, maybe six starters. I mean, people want to pay to go watch the star players play. If people want to go watch Atlanta, like if you're in the Columbus, you want to go see Thiago Almada play, here's your one chance, and now you can't because it's international duty and he's playing with Argentina. So now, like, I'm trying to find the tweet. I know someone put out the tweet of like the attendance numbers for this weekend with the international break, and some of the attendance numbers were just
I remember.
dreadful.
Yeah, I remember
I
that
mean,
one too.
the Quakes were like 12,000. I think Houston was right around there, maybe 13,000. It was bad. It was bad attendance, and it's not surprising. I mean, they're not going to pay however much money it is to go watch all the backups play.
Mm-hmm. No, completely agree. And I think we can be a little bit of both. I agree with you. I love the fact that we're getting our players out there. Miles Robinson looked fantastic today, which was very good to see. It's only going to raise his stock and help us out there. There was I believe it was OptaJack, the website that does all the stat tracking, that made some sort of tweet like this is the first, when we played Granada, it was the first time we started an entire 11 without any MLS players, and all the Euro snobs are like, "Oh my God, finally, it's about time." But nobody recognized that it all started from where we were. So on that side, like this is a good opportunity to continue the pipeline, right? Throw these USL guys in there, see who can float, and continue to develop them to do the next step. I think a ton of people, and this is why I've stopped trying to convince people now, because you're gonna listen to these people who are like, "Oh my goodness, finally we don't have any MLS players. But the second you tell them all those players were made in MLS, like, oh well, it doesn't matter because now they play there in Europe or Belgium or South America or whatever. Well, if you can't recognize the pipeline and what we're trying to do, then there's no point in trying to save you because you're not trying to learn, right? So I am a bit upset with the fact that we don't stop our league for international tournaments, but we are going to stop our league for a World Cup style knockout super tournament with Liga MX that is in the middle of the summer. I don't know. I feel like the you know trying to phrase this correctly, but I wonder if there's like a threshold at some point where if we hit 150 players in our league who are leaving to go to international duty, is that when we decide to say, okay, it's time to stop? Right? Like what is the limit before it's like, okay, we clearly can't do this again because it's just bad. Um, and that'll be an interesting conversation. And at what point, how many teams do we need to get there? Right? Are we going to hit 40 teams before we start saying, okay, let's now think about stopping for all of our international breaks like everybody else does? I don't know. I'm happy. I'm glad that we're getting our name out there because just raising the stock. Thiago Almada scoring for Argentina on the weekend, instant stock raise, right? And that's good for the league. Miles Robinson's performance, good for the league, right? Players who have that potential to make that move at some point, performing well on the international stage is good for the league. The
Yeah, 100%.
the teams that come back and have to now struggle in MLS with very low level play because they're missing some of their big players. Not so good for the league, but I guess it's a pro and con thing, right? Is in the grand scheme of things, is Thiago Almada raising his stock by another 5 million worth the 900,000 in revenue loss that you had from people not going to games that day? I don't know. I'm just making up numbers at this point, right? But there are people who make these decisions who are way above me and are probably a little bit smarter than me. Not super, super smarter than me, but maybe a little bit. Um, so I'm just a guy with a microphone who shares my ideas sometimes. They get paid to do this stuff. Now, if they want to, they can talk to high school level Connor and me, and we can give them a really good idea on how to make MLS really good. I don't remember it anymore, but I know Connor does.
No, I don't remember it either,
I forgot it.
unfortunately.
We'll have to sit down and think about it again. We've talked so much MLS, we've talked ourselves out of our idea. Damn.